It feels like barely any time has passed as we close the doors on the first major in CS2's history, but Counter-Strike is the scene that never sleeps. Tournaments are going on constantly, and so it makes sense that not even 2 weeks later, we got the next notable competition taking place, with IEM at Chengdu going on this past week, featuring a decently stacked field of teams including such favorites as FaZe, Mouz, Astralis, G2, Team Liquid, Virtus.pro, Heroic, Cloud9, among many others. It was definitely going to be a great tournament to watch play out because we had a lot of questions going in. Obviously, teams that fell short and couldn't make the major, like Astralis and Liquid, are still working out new lineups. Could they take advantage of the tired field coming from Copenhagen to jump out and get a win? And during the first half of the tournament, that appeared to be the case. Astralis and Liquid jumped out to early, dominant runs, taking huge wins off tournament favorites like Virtus.pro, FaZe, and G2. But down the stretch, it was the clutch factor of FaZe and the brilliance of Mouz that really shone through, culminating in a Mouz-FaZe final where FaZe would take a dominant 2-0 victory to claim the tournament. FaZe now extend their streak of having made every single finals of every tournament they have competed in since CS2 has come out. That's crazy, it's unprecedented, it's an insane run of form from the FaZe guys. So if you missed out on the action live, we're going to talk about some of the biggest moments of the tournament along the way, as well as taking a look at that finals matchup between FaZe and Mouz. But before we do, I need you guys to take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm and my goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers as fast as possible. We're in the home stretch. We are less than 70 subscribers away from that goal. And listen, I look at my analytics. The vast majority of you who watch these videos are not subscribed, so do it. Click that button. And while you're down there, maybe consider becoming a channel member. For $5 a month, you can support me directly in what I do here, gain access to exclusive emblems, emotes, and a shout out at the end of every video, as well as new content coming your way soon. And lastly, follow me on Twitch, live, Sunday through Friday, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Come say hi, and let's get into the breakdown. Right off the bat, I think the story of this tournament has to be logistics. The facts are that half of the top teams in this tournament are just coming off of the major. They pretty much had no time between finishing in Copenhagen and having to travel all the way to China and prep for this tournament. In cases like FaZe, Mouz, G2, they probably had under a week to get ready for this tournament. And that means a lot of teams are coming in tired, they're jet lagged, they're not very prepped. And then you consider other teams like Astralis and Liquid who are under new lineups, they've had a lot of time to prep. You know, they didn't make the major, right? They bombed out in the RMR, so they've had over a month to prep these new lineups, get ready for this tournament, study their opposition, watch the major, and then get ready to snipe early on in Chengdu. And that's pretty much what we saw play out. Teams like FaZe, G2, Virtus.pro, they were clearly slow to start, and that definitely affected how this bracket played out. And while some losses are forgivable, some are definitely not. I recently made a video about how I thought this Cloud9 team was doing quite well, and then they rock up to this tournament, and the first thing they do is lose a best of one, get stomped out by FlyQuest. Now, I'll credit to FlyQuest, they played really good in this tournament, but they are also very much not the type of team that should be beating this Cloud9 roster ever. So Cloud9 immediately dropped to the lower bracket. They do their job, they beat Wildcard in a 2-0 best of 3, but then they have to play FaZe and Decider in an elimination match, and FaZe are just the better team, so Cloud9 pretty much gets roundly sent out of this tournament. Whereas if they won their first best of one, the brackets would have been very different and Cloud9 could have actually had a chance to contend. At the end of the day, I'm just going to call Caster's curse on this one. Cloud9, get some rest, get ready for the next tournament. I'm sure you guys will bounce back from this one. So other than that Cloud9 slip, the rest of the early bracket went about how I would have expected. What I liked about this tournament format at Chengdu is there was only one set of best of ones. Each team only played one game before we got straight to best of threes to really duke it out and see who was playing better at this tournament. So right away, we get to see some narratives established. When we get to the upper brackets of these group stages, we saw Astralis, Liquid immediately jump out and take big wins over FaZe and G2 respectively, and that's huge. We had a lot of questions about Astralis and Liquid as individual teams, and they both had really great showings at this tournament. Started off with the now device-led Astralis. What really shocked me out the gate was that they went through flawless in their bracket. They beat Steel Helmet, that's expected, and in the first best of 3 against FaZe, they jump out and win 2-0. They are just soundly beating FaZe in a best of 3 series. They looked really competent, the device calling was actually really good, and most importantly, despite Astralis now having Device as their in-game leader, he wasn't lagging behind in terms of the individual production, which was our biggest fear. They looked really, really good. They then just beat Virtus.pro straight up in the bracket final, again 2-0. So Astralis, they didn't lose a game en route to the playoffs, and it looked like they were going to be very, very dominant in this tournament. And again, it can't be understated how well Astralis played here. 13-7, 13-4, 13-6, 13-7. These are very, very strong victories with no room for their enemy to make a comeback. But while I'm willing to give Astralis their flowers here, they played great in this tournament, this really does look like an overperformance though, unfortunately. Looking at the individual stats, I just can't see Device maintaining a 1.21 rating as both the primary opper and the in-game leader of this team. It would be breaking the trends of how we understand Counter-Strike to this point. Being able to maintain that kind of individual performance on one of the hardest roles is just not practical. I mean, look at other opper in-game leaders, the first person that might jump out to you is James. But if you look at Virtus Pro over the last year, they are a very inconsistent team, and I think one of the reasons that might be the case is that James is having to split double duties. He can't be the superstar he once was and also be the leader of this team. It's just not something that happens in CS. You add on top of that, Stown and Yabby are definitely inconsistent series to series, and I don't think Bro is in any way going to be the long-term replacement for Blame F. It just feels like this Astralis team is a placeholder. This was a great result, but it doesn't feel like this Astralis team is going to be the same even like 2 months from now, 3 months from now. And then we jump over to Liquid, and I'm actually feeling a lot more positive about Liquid as a whole. When this team first formed and we saw Liquid in the RMRs for the major, they looked really, really bad. Like, go back and watch those games. Not only were the T-side super sloppy, the calling was awful. The actual formation of where they were putting players on the map was really bad. It looked like a pug team. It really looked like they hadn't practiced it all together, and it showed in the server. So now we've had some time to think about it, marinate, practice some more. Team Liquid come into this tournament and I think look much, much stronger. First off, regardless of performance, I think the three-man core of Twist, Naf, and Cadian is really worth exploring, because I think you have a good mixture of superstar potential out of Twist, the amazing anchor role that you can get out of Nafly where he can play anything the team needs him to do. And then you add on Cadian, who's definitely still a top IGL in my opinion, and showing some great individual flashes at moments when he needs to on the op. The question for me remains, Yakindar and Skulls. What are these two going to do? Are they going to be able to fill the roles they need to push this team into that top 5 territory? So looking at the results for this tournament, they jump out, they beat Heroic in a best of 1, that's good. They beat G2 in a best of 3, that's a great performance. They lose to Mouz, which again, I think that's justifiable. Mouz were definitely the second best team at this tournament, as we'll get into in a little bit. And then they lose a very close best of 3 to FaZe to exit the tournament. And this best of 3 easily could have gone Liquid's way. I mean, just look at the box score out the rip, it was an overtime loss on Nuke, a very close win on Anubis, and then a close loss on Mirage. We're talking just the very smallest margins between them making a semifinal appearance versus going out of the tournament. And again, there were a lot of good signs here. The things that stick out to me the most were that Cadian had some great individual pop-off moments on the op. He looked really strong as an individual player at this tournament. Twist is just looking as good as ever. His individual skill is just so good. He's one of my favorite players to watch, especially combined with Nafly. These two play so well together. It's one of my favorite duos in the history of Counter-Strike, and Nafly specifically does not get the flowers that he deserves. He's the North American equivalent of Rain. He will do anything, any role, he will do it well. He'll op, he'll mid-game call, he'll clutch, he'll anchor, he'll lurk. He is a perfect utility player, and he does it at such a high level. Even Skulls had some great individual moments, especially in the FaZe series. Really the piece that's lacking the most so far is Yakindar. I wonder how he's going to seed into this team going forward. I think in comparison to Astralis, who in my opinion definitely overperformed, I think Liquid looked really solid, but not in a way that looked very fluky. I'm really curious to see how Liquid play in their next tournament. I think they can really start to shock some teams. I would just be worried about Yakindar in the long term. I think he's the first person I would put on the chopping block to be replaced. He just needs a little more star power on his team. It's just not quite enough for Twist to solo carry them through tournaments. Alright, rapid round on our way to the finals matchup. Virtus Pro. I think they looked good early on, but they just aren't able to do it in best of 3s. They haven't made a semifinals or better in quite a long time, which goes back to some of my talk during the major, where I do really think this team is overrated. I don't like how they play Counter-Strike. I think James as an in-game leader is a waste of time. I would like them to very much change up this roster and the playstyle and put James back in the superstar role so the VP can start actually contending again. Right now, what they're doing, it just doesn't work in the long term. G2 were really interested in this tournament. They go out in 4th place, and frankly, they looked really good at some points and really bad at others. Once again, m0NESY is making a claim for being the best player in the world right now, right up there with Donk, and his play has been monstrous. Throughout all of their tournaments, really, m0NESY has just been so consistently excellent, and it sucks that the rest of the team around him has been so inconsistent to compensate. But here, we actually got brief stints of really good form from Nico. Hooksy himself had some great individual form too. It's Hunter and Nexa that continue to be the big question marks game to game for this roster. There's just not quite enough firepower, similar to Liquid, but the difference is just a little bit more from Nico, maybe a little bit more from Hunter, and G2 could easily be winning these tournaments because m0NESY is just that good. And all that culminates in a matchup we've been seeing a lot of lately, FaZe versus Mouz in the finals. Thus far, Mouz have never been able to take down FaZe in their individual matchups, but going into this finals matchup, JimFat, Xertion, Torji were playing out of their minds. JimFat looked like an absolute monster leading up to this final set. He was dominating. His ability to multi-kill was looking insane. I'm talking just crazy individual swings with the AK, just popping heads left and right. The way he was taking over lobbies was just not what you would expect out of someone who's only 17. A lot of the young talent in CS2 right now is just going absolutely crazy. The young guard is here, the next generation of Counter-Strike is here, and leading the way are people just like JimFat, and it was great to see it play out. And as far as operas go, Torji has really grown on me. Some of the individual plays on maps like Anubis in this tournament were crazy. His flicks were insane. Just again, this young generation of operas coming up right now are looking so great. And again, moving over to the FaZe clan side, that young omping talent on display once again. Broky leading the tournament, absolutely leading FaZe clan when they needed him most. MVP for the tournament, 1.23 rating, had a 73 kill differential over 15 maps as the primary opper. What an insane performance. Broky was on another level, and right behind him was Frozen, just putting up insane numbers, being this crazy versatile rifler, and some of his entries were just absolutely out of control. Once again, you had Rain just being the great anchor the team needed to be, and Rops, who continues to struggle with his individual form, but the good news is, the young stars of FaZe are compensating. Rops doesn't have to be that top 3, top 1 talent in the world that he was at the beginning of CS2. He's allowed to be sort of the second or third star, depending on the map, and do what he does best, which is win individual moments. His ability to clutch is almost unparalleled in the world right now, so Rops not having to shoulder that true superstar role, letting Frozen and Broky step up in his place, allows him to shine in what he's truly good at, which is being on the lurk. Looking at the first game on Overpass, what stands out to me right away is of course Broky leading the server with 22 kills, definitely the best player in this series today. FaZe Clan also took both pistol rounds and the 3 rounds after, which again, that's 6 rounds on your side almost for free if you win those pistols. That's a huge deficit to try and take away if you're Mouse Sports, especially when you consider how sighted Overpass is. FaZe start off on the CT side, so they're able to take that pistol round advantage and run off an 8-4 half. That deficit is so hard to overcome if you immediately lose the second half pistol as Mouse Sports. You're now down 11-4 CT side Overpass. Yeah, that comeback is doable, but is really not ideal. Mouse do manage to establish somewhat of a comeback. They take the next 5 to control it, but as soon as FaZe win 1, manage to break the economy, they're already at match point. It's just too little too late for Mouse Sports to mount a proper comeback. And then we move to Nuke, FaZe Clan's best map by far, and despite a great performance from JimFat throughout the series, including this closing map with 18 kills and 1.32 rating, it just doesn't matter. The ability for FaZe Clan to dominate the T side of Nuke is incredible. They were just so in control, running off 6 straight rounds to open up on T side Nuke, and at that point, Mouse, they just ran out of gas, they capitulated, they allowed FaZe to take, again, both pistols, and that means FaZe Clan are entering their CT side of Nuke with 10 rounds in the pocket, thanks to that pistol round, and at that point, it's game over. You're not going to make up that deficit unless FaZe throw. Which of course means FaZe Clan wins, Kerrigan gets another W, Broky gets the MVP deservedly, and that concludes IEM Chengdu. Definitely a great tournament to follow the post-major cycle. FaZe still maintaining their spot as easily the best team or the second best team at worst in the world. Hopefully we can see another tournament soon with the full field, Spirit, everybody on display so we can really start to establish what the top 5 looks like in the current state of Counter-Strike. That'd be interesting. Let me know if you guys watched this tournament in the comments down below. Who'd you guys really like to see? For me, the standout was Team Liquid, but I'm biased because of my NAFLI love. I really liked how they look here, and I hope they're going to continue this form going forward. Other than that, my name is LionHeartZ. Thank you to my channel members, Furley, Justin, and Jesse. Without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah, subscribe, help me out. I'll see you guys soon in another video. Peace.